America was looking pretty good on the energy front, especially in contrast to Europe. And so what do you think the rationale is for simultaneously cutting production and making it extraordinarily difficult to provide abundant energy, while also pursuing a policy of going around the globe and asking for excess energy resources from producers who are not necessarily reliable, let's say like Venezuela, or desirable, and also who don't abide by the same standards of environmental purity that govern the situation in the United States? Like, I don't understand how that policy can be constructed and pursued. What's the rationale for it? Is it that, we had a deputy prime minister in Canada who said famously something like, well, it's good that energy prices are much higher because when Canadians pay more at the pump, they're all reminded constantly of just how severe the environmental crisis is, and which I think is an utterly appalling way to behave. And I also think it's counterproductive on the environmental front, because making people poor does not make the planet healthier. There's no evidence for that. So what do you think? Why do you think the Democrats pursued this policy?
They regard the climate agenda as part of their religion. I don't know any other way to explain it. They pursue it with religious zeal. And they care not, apparently, what type of pain these policies inflict upon the people that they are supposed to be serving, because they're not serving the people, they're serving the planet. And they use this terminology now openly, as you know, to our great amazement and frustration. And it's as if, I'll put it in very parochial terms. When I'm in Louisiana, I try to explain to our folks that, listen, they have effectively replaced Father God with Mother Earth. I mean, not to oversimplify it,
but
that's the best way to. That's how I see it. And so they believe we owe fealty to Mother Earth, that we're created by the earth, they believe. So we owe everything to the earth itself, and we have to serve that cause above all else, and it matters not who they harm.
The problem I have with that is that the policies themselves don't seem to result in the consequences that are hypothetically desired. Like, I've spent a lot of time looking over the environmental crisis literature, and one of the things that seemed to me, well, two things appeared to me to be quite obvious as a consequence of poring over it. And the first is, we don't have one environmental/economic crisis confronting us. We have many. And so, for example, Bjorn Lomborg and I wrote an article for The Telegraph last week, and I believe one of the things we pointed out in there, was that 23 million people a year around the world die from indoor air pollution, mostly from burning dung and wood. 23 million people, a huge number of people. And obviously that's polluting, and it's not good for the environment. And to replace that with inexpensive, well, it would be fossil fuel replacement if it was replaced most efficiently, would save tens of millions of people and also be good for the planet. And that's completely off the agenda. No one pays any attention to that whatsoever, even though, like as I said, the lives of 20 million people, a lot of them children, depend on it. There's these multiple issues as well on the environmental front, and Lomborg has done a better job than anyone else in rank ordering these things. And so the thing that I find so perplexing is that even if your goal was, in some sense, to serve the planet, it's by no means obvious in any sense whatsoever that raising energy prices and impoverishing poor people will do anything but hurt the planet. So I don't even buy the internal rationale. It's like, well, we're supposed to be serving the planet. It's like, well, none of our policies seem to be doing that. Lomborg, I think, estimated in the same article that the net consequence of all the global climate spending since 2005 will be a 1/10,000th of a degree reduction in temperature by the year 2100, insofar as it can be calculated by the UN's own climate models. And so I don't get it. We've had 30 years of this nonsense. All we've seemed to do is make the energy grid much more ineffective. And the only place that's really made an advance in terms of reducing carbon output has been the United States. And they did that through fracking. And every environmentalist on the planet hates fracking because, they claim erroneously that it does such things as cause earthquakes. And so we're in a situation where the planet is clearly no better off, and in fact, by many measures, worse off than it would have been if we would just left it to hell alone. And energy costs are spiraling out of control, and people are being plunged into poverty as winter approaches. And like, there's no positive outcome of that whatsoever. And yet the leaders are all gathered at COP27, again, I believe this weekend, to do exactly the same thing. And so even by their own standards, the standards of the environmentalists themselves, why wouldn't they support natural gas if they're actually concerned about improving the planet? Or nuclear power, for that matter. There's something more nefarious going on at the narrative level, even than we owe fealty to the planet. It's something like we have to destroy capitalism at all cost, even if that means compromising the planet. It's worse than the nature worship hypothesis.